There comes a moment in life, and it doesn't always knock. Sometimes, it just slips in quietly after another restless night, after another plan falls apart, after trying everything to fix what won't bend. You've been doing more, haven't you? Meditating, manifesting, journaling, praying, planning, and yet nothing changes. You look up and ask, why isn't it working? But here's the raw truth, one that's both uncomfortable and freeing. You've been trying to force your way into alignment. You've been holding on too tightly, trying to control the outcome. But life doesn't respond to force. It responds to surrender. Carl Jung once said, what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. So even though you're saying all the right things, deep down, your energy might still be saying, I'm scared, I'm not enough, I don't believe it'll happen. And that energy? That's what the world responds to, not your words, but your state of being. You're not failing because you're lazy or broken. You're stuck because you're in survival mode, trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. The truth is, we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. And when you're constantly chasing, fixing, proving, your life starts reflecting that same emptiness you're trying to escape. So what, if the most powerful thing you could do right now isn't to do more, but to stop? To stop pushing, to stop grasping, to stop proving. Not out of fear, but out of trust. Because when the doing stops, the becoming begins. When the noise fades, the truth inside you finally has space to rise. This is where real change happens. Not when you try harder, but when you let go. Not when you chase healing, but when you allow it. When you stop interfering, your inner world begins to reset. Your shadow starts to integrate. Your soul begins to breathe. This isn't giving up. It's giving in to something deeper, wiser, more real than anything you could force. It's the beginning of surrender. And in that surrender, everything starts to fall into place. Let go and observe what unfolds. Step back from the chase. The very act of pursuit may be the veil that blinds you. We have been conditioned to believe a great deception, that fulfillment lies at the end of relentless striving, that success is the reward for exhaustion, that happiness is something to be earned through endless motion. But Carl Jung did not urge us to run faster toward our desires. He urged us to turn inward and ask the far more unsettling question, why am I chasing this at all? Because often, what we pursue is not our true longing, but a cover for our deeper ache. When the hunger for love consumes you, is it truly love you seek, or is it the ancient fear of abandonment clawing through your chest? When your mind circles obsessively around money, is it really about abundance? Or is it the cry of the child within you, still trying to prove worth to those who made you feel invisible? Jung's genius was not in motivating us to climb higher, but in challenging us to descend into the hidden chambers of our own psyche. He warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That means the desires you chase may not be yours at all. They may belong to a wound you never healed, a belief you never questioned, a part of you that still thinks, if I just achieve this, then I'll finally be enough. But life doesn't respond to your surface wants. It echoes your essence. If you are operating from a place of inner fragmentation, then even your highest aspirations will slip through your fingers, not because you don't deserve them, but because the self behind the seeking is still bleeding. You may be whispering, please give me love, but your energy is still broadcasting, I am empty. And the world, attuned to your vibration, simply responds, as you believe, so it is. This is why people burn out, chasing unavailable partners, careers that deplete them, validation that never lasts, not because their goals are flawed, but because their pursuit is rooted in unresolved pain. The obsession was never about the object. It was about the hope that the object might heal what has long been unattended within. And here is the sobering truth. Even if you are handed everything you think you want right now, you might not be able to hold it, because your hands still tremble with the weight of unspoken grief, unmet needs, and suppressed truths. Jung was not here to help you manifest your desires through ego. He was here to guide you into integration, to show you that the thing you are chasing is not success, it's your lost self. And until you stop running and start listening, you will confuse the chase for purpose, and the emptiness will continue. So before you ask the universe to give you more, pause, ask your soul, what part of me still feels unworthy? What am I trying to fix with this pursuit? Because once you face that with honesty, you begin to return to wholeness. And from that place, you don't need to chase what was never yours. You become a magnet for what was always meant for you. This is not about abandoning your dreams. It is about purifying your motives. Not doing less, but doing it from a place that is no longer starving. A place that is ready, whole, rooted, free. This is not about becoming better. It is about becoming whole. So whole that you are no longer chasing, clinging, or craving, because you are no longer trying to fill a void. And it is only from this inner completeness that life begins to respond with trust rather than tests. Let us go deeper. The unconscious is always listening, not to your words, not to your intentions, but to the energy beneath them. Most people wake up each morning believing they are being tested by the universe, as if life were some external examiner, throwing obstacles in their path to measure their strength. But this belief is a surface myth. The deeper truth is more intimate, more unnerving. You are not being tested. You are being mirrored. Life does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are beneath the mask, not to the affirmations scribbled in your journal, nor to the curated healing narratives shared on social media, but to the invisible current of your unconscious identity. That silent belief system, woven from old wounds, forgotten memories, inherited fears, and unspoken doubts. That is what speaks first, and life listens to that. Carl Jung captured this with devastating precision when he said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart." Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. In other words, stop searching for signs in the sky and start reading the inscriptions carved inside your soul. Because here is the hard truth. If your inner world is rooted in unworthiness, abandonment, fear, or shame, no mantra, no vision board, no mental gymnastics will override that core vibration. You could chant "I am enough" 1,000 times with perfect posture and unwavering focus, but if the unconscious is still holding on to "I am not worthy," the vibration doesn't change. You cannot bypass your shadow with performative light. The unconscious is not fooled. It remembers everything, and it governs everything, whether you acknowledge it or not. That tightness you feel when you try to visualize the future, that flicker of anxiety when you speak your dreams aloud, that isn't your intuition warning you, it's your unconscious whispering, "You still don't believe this is possible." And life, always in service to your energetic truth, mirrors that disbelief, not to punish you, but to show you where you are still fragmented. So what do? We stop, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. We stop begging the universe to give us what we have not yet made room for. We stop stacking more positivity on top of unhealed pain, pretending that effort will save us from introspection. Real transformation is not found in grinding harder. It is found in presence, in quiet, in the radical act of sitting still long enough to hear what your psyche has been whispering all along. When doubt arises, do not run. When fear emerges, do not drown it in noise or distract it with another podcast or affirmation. Sit with it, observe it, dialogue with it, because every fear is a fragment of yourself longing to be seen. Every hesitation is a signal from the soul. Your unconscious is not your enemy, it is your guide. The question is not whether it's speaking. The question is, are you finally willing to listen? And here lies the paradox. When you do nothing, not out of avoidance, but out of conscious surrender, everything begins to shift. When you stop grasping, stop performing, stop attempting to manipulate divine timing with human impatience, your energy begins to harmonize. Reality begins to reorganize. The psyche begins to align with what is true, not what is forced. And in that space of stillness, life no longer mirrors your desperation. It mirrors your wholeness. That is the moment when the unconscious ceases its resistance, not because it has been silenced, but because it has finally been seen. And it is in that quiet surrender that life whispers, "Now you are ready." You were never here to chase alignment. You were here to embody it. And that embodiment begins, not in action, but in stillness. In the sacred pause where the ego softens and the self emerges. Detachment, contrary to the modern misconception, is not a retreat from meaning. It is the awakening to deeper meaning. Letting go is not the language of failure, it is the dialect of awakening. You release not because you no longer care, but because you've outgrown the illusion that control was ever yours to wield. I was never meant to control the world. The soul begins to understand. I was meant to understand myself within it. Detachment, then, is not the absence of feeling. It is the reclamation of energy from places where it was never meant to dwell. It is the quiet inner knowing that whispers, "I have done what I could. Now I surrender what I cannot." Carl Jung knew that true transformation is not birthed from obsession. It does not arise from force, nor from the compulsive grasp of the ego. It comes through surrender, not passive resignation, but an active, conscious alignment with the deeper rhythm of the soul. You cannot fake detachment. You cannot scroll through social media repeating, "I don't care anymore," while secretly refreshing your screen, waiting for a message, a sign, or a shift. The unconscious does not respond to your declarations, it responds to your vibration. And if the energy behind your silence still screams, "I need this to feel whole," life will reflect all the ways you are not. Detachment is not the absence of desire, it is the absence of dependence. It is the sacred knowing that says, even if this never arrives, I am still enough. And paradoxically, it is this vibration of wholeness that causes life to move in your favor. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped resisting it. Life yields not to the frantic, but to the whole. It bends for those who no longer beg to be completed, but instead radiate completion. So if you find yourself in pain right now, trapped in the invisible web of waiting, obsessing, hoping, pause, not to numb, not to distract, but to ask the question that changes everything. What part of me still believes that this one thing will save me? Because that part of you, the one that waits for love, for recognition, for success, is not broken. It does not need to be fixed. It needs to be witnessed, not by the world, not by the person who left, not even by the voices of your past. It needs to be seen by you. Because the moment you behold yourself with clarity, without judgment or shame, the search ends. You no longer scan the world for mirrors, you become your own. And in that sacred inner gaze, the world begins to reflect back something entirely different. Not your longing, but your light. And it is precisely here, at the edge where the grasping ends and the silence begins, that the real alchemy unfolds. No more chasing, no more begging, no more performing for worthiness. Only the quiet return to your essence, raw, whole, unadorned. This is not passivity. This is sacred presence. Let the void be. Do not rush to escape it. For the void is not empty. It is the crucible of transformation. After the letting go, after the compulsive striving, the silent pleading, the clenched prayer, what arrives is not applause or signs, but stillness, a vast, unsettling quiet. You awaken, and nothing appears different. The phone remains silent, the heart still bears its ache, the doors remain unopened, and from deep within, a voice arises, not loud, but hollow. Was any of this worth it? This is the threshold that breaks many souls, not because they are weak, but because they were taught that letting go must be instantly rewarded, that surrender should be met with miracles. But the unconscious, the universe, does not follow the calendar of your expectations. It follows resonance. And before it delivers what you asked for, it asks a far deeper question. Who have you become without it? Here, in the unmarked space between what was and what will be, you are suspended in the in-between. This is the sacred pause, where your old self has been stripped away and the new has not yet arrived. Jung called this the creative void, a womb of chaos where the cosmos secretly begins to stir. He wrote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. You may see nothing, but beneath that still surface, the unconscious is moving, the soul is in reconstruction. Old patterns are falling away, neural pathways are rewiring, your nervous system is acclimating to the frequency of what you once believed you weren't worthy of. And yet, because it is invisible, your ego will panic. It will whisper, 'This isn't working.' And if you believe that illusion, you will run again. You will seek, you will sabotage. You will interrupt the very becoming that was quietly taking root. The void is not punishment. It is purification. It strips you of the illusions you once clung to, the need for proof, the addiction to control, the seduction of immediate reward, and in their place it leaves only one thing, your essence. When you arrive at that naked place, where there is no external evidence to lean on and no outcome to chase, only the bare truth of your presence, that is when the world begins to respond. Because the universe does not answer your words, it answers your frequency. You can write 1,000 affirmations, chant 100 mantras, build endless vision boards, but if the energy underneath still whispers, "I'm not sure I'm worthy," then life will mirror that hesitancy. This void is not passive waiting, it is embodiment. It is the sacred rehearsal, where you are asked to become the feeling before the form appears. Can you feel abundance while your account is still empty? Can you radiate love while lying alone in bed? Can you feel liberation before your outer world reflects it? Because if you can, you dissolve the illusion of time. You collapse the space between longing and receiving. You shift from wanting to becoming. So if you find yourself in that quiet chasm right now where nothing moves, nothing changes, and the air feels thick with uncertainty, hold your ground. Do not fix, do not chase, do not escape. Breathe, listen, anchor, because this silence is not absence, it is initiation. And when you stop needing the noise, when you stop begging for the signs, and instead become the very signal you've been waiting for, life returns, but not with chaos, with clarity, not with noise, but with power. But this time, the silence doesn't haunt you, it hums your soul's forgotten melody. Now, something within begins to harmonize. This is the sacred call. Integrate, not obsess. Every desire you carry is not a random craving, it is not punishment, nor is it the universe toying with your hope. It is a mirror, a message, a summons from the depths of your own psyche. Carl Jung understood this intimately. He taught that desire is not simply a longing for something external, but a symbol, an encoded signal from the unconscious. Not to chase outward, but to awaken inward. You do not yearn for money merely to possess wealth. You yearn for the safety that was once denied to your inner child. You do not ache for love simply to be adored. You crave the sacred recognition of your essence, the primal need to be truly seen. You do not hunger for success for applause alone. You seek the inner knowing that you are enough, without needing a world to validate it. The desire, then, is not the flaw, it is the thread. The unconscious attachment beneath the desire, that's where the entanglement lies. And here is where most wander into illusion. They do not sit with the desire, they spiral within it. Obsession masquerades as action. They scan their phone, reread old conversations, analyze pauses and silence as if the universe speaks only in algorithms. And they call this manifestation. But Jung's path, the path of individuation, was never about chasing fragments of self in the outer world. It was about becoming whole. And wholeness is not perfection. It is integration. It is the courageous act of reclaiming all that has been disowned. Your light and your shadow, your strength and your insecurity, your passion and your pain. Even the parts you buried out of shame, they too belong. Because the moment you embrace all of yourself, you stop asking the world to complete you. You become complete. And when you are full within, life ceases to be something you chase. It becomes something you magnetize. Let this truth descend into your being. You do not attract what you obsess over. You attract what you have made peace with. So the next time desire stirs within you like a storm, don't grip it, don't analyze it into pieces. Instead, pause. Not out of apathy, but out of mastery. Breathe, turn inward. Ask, what part of me still believes I need this to feel whole? That question is the doorway. Because once you realize that you are already whole, already enough, already anchored in your worth, something radical happens. The storm quiets. The obsession dissolves, and in its place arrives a stillness, a clarity, a subtle magnetism that no longer chases, but draws. You no longer require the world to prove your value, and ironically, it is precisely then that the world begins to respond. Because your energy no longer whispers, I need, it now declares, I am. This is the subtle but profound shift, from manifesting through desperation to magnetizing through alignment, from running after symbols of worth to standing in your essence. Yes, you could keep reaching. You could spend your days decoding signs, trying to decode fate. Or you could choose something far more revolutionary. Sit still. Not as a form of resignation, but as sacred self-possession. Do nothing. Let life recalibrate to your new frequency. Because once the internal terrain has changed, you do not need to chase. You do not even need to ask. You simply allow. You simply receive. You simply are. The ego longs for control. The soul longs for peace. And within you, there is a quiet war unfolding. Be honest with yourself. That restless part of you, the one that compulsively checks your phone, refreshes the inbox, rereads old conversations, watches the clock like it's a countdown to salvation and whispers, why hasn't it happened yet? That is not your higher self speaking. That is the ego trembling in fear. It is the part of you that abhors the unknown, that clings to the illusion of certainty because it was once taught that control equals safety. And when life refuses to deliver certainty, the ego spirals into chaos. It panics, it catastrophizes, it floods your nervous system with anxiety, then disguises that anxiety as intuition. But let us be clear, that is not your intuition. That is insecurity wearing the mask of urgency. It is unresolved fear masquerading as divine warning. Carl Jung knew this tension intimately, not as theory, but as experience. He did not merely study the ego, he wrestled with it. He walked into the storm of the self and returned with truths that still echo in the modern soul. He taught us that the human journey is a sacred battleground, a continuous dance between the ego and the soul. The ego screams for outcomes, the soul whispers of alignment. The ego says, if I can just control this, I won't be hurt again. The soul responds, we've already survived what we once thought would break us. Let us now flow. Here is what most never learn. The ego is obsessed with how. The soul is content with yes. The ego demands timelines, formulas, signs. The soul operates beyond time because the soul is not chasing, it is remembering. The soul knows. It remembers who you were before fear entered. It remembers your wholeness. Jung once wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are is not the anxious version refreshing the screen. It is not the one measuring worth in messages, followers, bank balances, or milestones. The real you is the one who breathes slowly, the one who trusts deeply, the one who knows that what is meant for you will arrive, not a moment too soon, not a second too late, but precisely in its sacred hour. To access that version, you must learn to pause when panic rises, to still the waters when the ego thrashes, and to ask yourself one question, simple but transformative. Is this coming from my ego or from my essence? If what you feel is pressure, urgency, tension, that is ego. If what you feel is peace, softness, stillness, that is soul. This is not a call to abandon your dreams. It is a call to unclench your grip around them. to stop suffocating your visions with fear and call it manifestation. Desperation is loud. It begs, it clings, it chases. But alignment is silent. It does not beg, it does not chase. It becomes. So if you are standing at the edge of doubt, aching for reassurance, do not add more noise. Do not flood your mind with distractions or self-blame. Instead, return home to yourself. Close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and ask gently, what would the healed version of me do right now? Then honor that answer, not because it guarantees the outcome, but because it aligns you with truth. You were not sent here to dominate reality through force. You were sent here to co-create with the unseen, and co-creation cannot happen in a state of panic. It only begins when the ego softens and the soul is allowed to speak. You must choose peace, especially when it's uncomfortable, when there is no sign, when your ego is screaming, this still isn't working, because it is in those moments, when silence surrounds you and nothing seems to change, that the real transformation begins. To choose peace over pressure is to no longer live as a passive dreamer of life, but as its conscious architect. Peace is not the absence of desire, it is the presence of inner alignment. It is your compass, and when you follow it, everything that resonates with your essence begins to follow you. But to walk this path, you must be willing to meet the one thing most people avoid, the shadow. Carl Jung did not teach manifestation through wishful thinking or fantasy. He taught integration. He understood that we cannot call in light while continuing to reject our own darkness, that we cannot summon abundance while hiding from the versions of ourselves that still feel unworthy, scared, angry, or ashamed. The universe does not respond to your affirmations, it responds to your frequency, and that frequency is not tuned by perfection, but by wholeness. You see, shadow work is manifestation work. You cannot attract a life of freedom while being at war with parts of yourself. Every longing for love that borders on obsession is often not about love. It is a wounded cry that says, maybe if someone loves me, I'll finally feel enough. Every push for success isn't just drive, it's a buried belief whispering, I'm not safe unless I prove my worth. And when these desires remain tethered to trauma, what you create will echo your fragmentation. You will attract partners who trigger your abandonment. You will earn money that disappears like sand through your fingers. You will build dreams that feel hollow, not because you are unworthy, but because you created them from the parts of you that were still bleeding. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So the deeper question is not how do I attract more, but rather, what part of me still believes I am not already enough? This is the doorway into shadow work. And no, it is not glamorous. It is not easy. It does not come dressed in crystals or aesthetic affirmations. It comes with discomfort. It comes with facing yourself. Honestly, it demands you stop blaming the external world and begin asking yourself, was I ready to receive what I asked for? This is not about shame. This is about ownership, the kind of radical self-responsibility that invites every version of you, your strength and your sorrow, your confidence and your fear, to sit at the same table and to say, you are allowed to exist. You no longer have to hijack my life to be seen. Because when the shadow is finally brought into the light, it no longer plots from behind the curtain. It no longer sabotages, manipulates, or demands chaos just to be acknowledged. It rests, it integrates, and in that moment, you reclaim your power. That is when your energy changes, not superficially, but at the deepest strata of your being. You no longer create from fear. You magnetize from wholeness, not because you said the right mantra, but because your nervous system has learned what safety feels like. That is not wishful thinking. That is quantum alignment. That is the soul remembering its own completeness. You stop asking, you start allowing, you stop striving, you start radiating, because now you're not begging the universe to fix you. You are becoming the version of yourself who already knows it's done. And that inner stillness, that self-recognition, That deep integration is what bends the outer world. Not vision boards, not scripting, not chasing signs, but the courageous decision to stop bypassing your pain and start sitting beside it. To look in the mirror and say, I've been trying to manifest my future without making peace with my past. Not anymore. Now is the moment you stop running outward and begin turning inward. Now is the time you face the hidden architect of your reality, the unconscious self, who, in silence, has been scripting the very patterns you thought were fate. And when you do this, when you look into the face of what you've long avoided, the illusion fractures. And in that breaking, your true power returns. Your life no longer mirrors your wounds. It begins to reflect your integration. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, not perfection, but wholeness, not fantasy, but freedom. Do not become the silent saboteur of your own destiny. This is perhaps the most difficult truth to digest. The only thing standing between you and the life your soul longs for is you. Not your childhood, not your heartbreaks, not the chaos of the world. You. Carl Jung, the man who mapped the labyrinth of the human psyche, once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Terrifying. Because real acceptance demands that you confront the very parts of yourself you have buried in the dark. The guilt that lingers behind your ambition, the shame you dress in productivity, the fear that whispers, I'm not enough. So instead of listening, you chase applause, love, validation, hoping something external will rescue you from the echo of your own self-doubt. But here is the sobering reality. Whatever you chase in order to avoid yourself will inevitably become the thing that escapes you. The dream you think you're pursuing isn't your purpose, it's your distraction. You're not building a future, you're running from a present you haven't made peace with. And the universe, in its deep intelligence, is not punishing you for this. It's protecting you, because if it gave you everything you wanted, while you were still fragmented inside, you would not be able to hold it. Not because you are unworthy, but because you have not yet remembered that you already are. Jung knew the danger of fragmentation. He taught that when you reject aspects of the self, the conscious and unconscious begin to speak in different voices. The conscious self says, I want love, success, peace. But the unconscious, still bruised, still afraid, murmurs, I am not ready, I don't believe I deserve it. And thus your energy becomes split. A magnetic field of contradiction that repels what it claims to want. You become the energetic saboteur of your own becoming, not because you are broken, but because you are still living from a version of yourself shaped in survival, forged in unworthiness, taught to earn love instead of receive it. And that is the silent tragedy. Most people will spend a lifetime trying to manifest outcomes when what they truly need is to evolve their identity. You do not need to do more. You need to become the version of yourself who no longer needs to prove, the one who no longer begs life to deliver what it already placed within you, the version who knows, without external confirmation, I am ready, I am whole, I am enough. Because here is the law few dare to speak. You do not receive what you say you want. You receive what you are. If you carry unworthiness in the depth of your being, no amount of vision boards or mantras will override it. You will sabotage the very blessings you call in. Not from malice, but from misalignment. So if life feels stalled, if the blessings feel delayed, stop asking why nothing is working out. And start asking, what part of me still believes I have to suffer before I can receive? Because the moment you stop chasing external outcomes and start transforming your inner identity, the axis of your life begins to shift, not by luck, not overnight, but organically from the deepest center of your being. This is the path of real transformation, not loud, not sudden, but sacred. So hear this with your soul. You are not cursed, you are not forgotten. You are simply being called to rise, to grow into the version of yourself who can hold what you have always been destined for. Not because you begged for it, but because you became it. Not just for a moment, but for the rest of your unfolding. Because once the inner shift occurs, manifestation is no longer something you pursue, it becomes what you are. This is not magic, it is alignment, it is individuation, it is the quiet, enduring power of returning to your essence. Final chapter. You are not manifesting, you are remembering. Let us close with one of the most sacred truths Carl Jung ever offered, not as an inspiring quote, but as a mirror that reveals who you've always been beneath the noise. You are not manifesting a life that doesn't yet exist. You are remembering the one that has always lived within you. You thought you were building from scratch, layer by layer, goal by goal. You imagined the journey was about creating something outside of you, a relationship, success, peace, fulfillment. So you visualized, you affirmed, you healed, you did the shadow work, you chased alignment as if it lived somewhere out there. But what if it was never about building? What if the highest form of creation is reclamation, not becoming more, but becoming again? What if the work has never been to earn your worth, but to retrieve it from the places you abandoned it? Jung's wisdom was never about helping us get more. It was about helping us remember what we never lost, to recognize that the very pieces we've been pursuing were fragments of our original self, cast into the shadow in order to survive a world that taught us to betray our truth. Let that truth settle into your bones. The version of you that already embodies the love, abundance, and peace you seek is not waiting in the distant future. It is your original frequency, the self before the world told you to hustle for your soul. But somewhere along the way, life grew loud, and in that noise, you were taught to earn love, to chase worth, to fear stillness. You forgot your natural rhythm. You forgot that you were never meant to become anyone else, only to remember the one you already are. You never lost your power, you simply lost your connection to it. Now, as you walk the sacred spiral of healing, reflection, and return, know this: you are not constructing your destiny. You are peeling away the illusion that you ever left it. The fear, the shame, the urgency, the grasping, these are not who you are. They are interference, static clouding the quiet truth of your soul. Jung never handed us tools to fix what was broken. He handed us a map to excavate what was buried. You are not the anxiety. You are not the persona crafted for survival. You are the presence beneath it all. The soul who does not grasp because it already holds, who no longer chases because it already is. This is the sacred truth. When you stop forcing from fear, when you stop controlling from panic, you return to your true frequency, the one that does not shout or chase, but simply remembers. And in that remembrance, reality reshapes itself around you. That is why alignment begins not in action, but in surrender, not in chasing, but in becoming. When the soul rises above the ego, effort fades, energy takes the lead. So, if you are still in the loop, overthinking, striving, waiting for the universe to match your urgency, pause. Not because your dream is denied, but because your soul is summoning you back to center, back to origin. You were never meant to beg for your life. You were meant to become the one who already knows it is theirs. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are remembering, and now you've remembered enough. Now is the moment to return, not to performance, not to perfection, but to the silence inside you that has always known. Everything meant for me will arrive, not because I chase it, but because I have become it. And when you become it, there is no more striving, no more pleading, only receiving, only presence, only being. Welcome home. And if something within you stirred as you listened, don't let this pass like another post, another moment of fleeting insight. This is not just a video. It is a reflection, a message from the deeper layers of your own unconscious. Brought here not by chance, but by synchronicity. As Jung said, We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. Perhaps this moment is one of them. A mirror, a portal, a turning point. So if your soul recognizes this message, declare it, not to impress, but to align. Comment, I let go, I align, I remember. Not for the algorithm, but to speak directly to your subconscious. This time, I choose presence over panic, soul over survival. Tap, like, not for validation, but to anchor this truth into your body. Subscribe, not for more noise, but because you're ready for deeper remembrance. This isn't just a channel, it's a pilgrimage, a home for those awakening. And if you know someone who is still chasing everything except themselves, share this with them. Because, in the end, as Carl Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And this is your awakening. Your moment to stop reaching and start remembering. In a world obsessed with doing, stillness is rebellion, presence is power. And sometimes the most radical act of transformation is to do nothing. So breathe, be still, and remember, you were never manifesting, you were always remembering. And now your return begins.